right, everyone. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us for the 2025 Pedagogicon. This is our 12th annual conference, and we are delighted to have an incredible crowd joining us from across the United States and beyond as well. I'd like to welcome Dr. Melissa Bell, uh, Vice, Vice President of Academic Excellence for the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, who will provide a welcome for us this morning. Welcome, Dr. Bell.
Thank you, Rusty. And I want to share my screen so that y'all don't have to look, at me. So do you all see, do you see the slides? Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Rusty, and everyone on the committee, because I saw all those names in the conference program, and I know how hard everyone has worked on this. So the theme of the conference is teaching and learning durable skills, and I call these essential skills. They have lots of other names, soft skills, employability skills, whatever you want to call them. But they're essential because they're essential to everyone's success, whether a student goes on to graduate school, whether they get a job, whether they start their own company, or they become a stay-at-home parent. Everyone needs to know how to think critically. They need to know how to communicate, and they need to know how to get along with one another. So thank you, committee, for coming up with this topic. It's very timely and very important. So I want to show you, I'm sure this is familiar to lots of you, but I want to show you the Kentucky Graduate Profile, which is the 10 essential skills that we've come up with, which is basically Kentucky's post-secondary learning framework. So no matter what a student's major, no matter what they plan to do with that after graduation, these are the skills that are going to set people up for success. And as you browse through these 10 essential skills, you'll know that they're the ones that are often touted as workplace skills, and that is definitely true. But they're also the skills that are foundational to the liberal arts. So we don't need this artificial dichotomy between workforce preparation and traditional education, because information literacy is important whether you're a philosophy major or whether you're a cybersecurity major, and adaptability and leadership are important whether you're a music major or a business major. So these are universal skills, and I think they provide a pretty good framework for us talking about learning and academic quality in Kentucky. I did want to talk about why at CPE we wanted to create a framework. We didn't want this to be an initiative. We didn't want this to be just another thing to do. We wanted to take what you all were doing on the campuses and frame it in a way that we could all be talking the same language. And talking the same language is the first benefit of a framework. It gives faculty, staff, students, employers, families a way to talk about the value of higher education. Why do you go to college? To gain valuable skills. And therefore, it gives us a way to talk about number one, why do you go to college and what do you do when you get to college? It provides structure and coherence to both the academic curriculum and the co-curriculum. For a student, we need them to know that college isn't just a hodgepodge of courses. It is a well thought out progression of content and skill development that's going to set them up for success. And a framework like the graduate profile helps students understand the specific knowledge, skills, and abilities they're gaining. And it helps them, very importantly, to articulate those to employers. And on the flip side of that, it helps employers understand all of this. So once again, we're all speaking the same language. And that's why CPE worked with our campuses to help create this learning framework so that we can all be singing off the same sheet. And we could have created a framework around anything. There's a lot of frameworks out there on teaching and learning, but we decided to focus on skills. So why? Once again, the focus on skills, these durable skills, these essential skills, they can elevate the conversation about the value of higher education. I don't think I have to tell anyone about the growing public skepticism about the value. This is a way to talk about the value. It definitely doesn't mean that content isn't important. It's just a way that we can talk about content and skills at the same time. Um, we know that, secondly, the number one reason people go to college right now and for the last few decades is to get a good job. So it's clear that they want an alignment between education and their careers. And we obviously want them to get knowledge and skills along the way. We just may need to be a little bit more intentional about explaining these skills to students because they don't always seem to know what they are gaining through their education. And then another reason to focus on skills is the human skills, so-called human skills, durable skills, essential skills, because of artificial intelligence. So, as AI is used more and more for these so-called lower level work, it means that critical thinking and information literacy and ethics and all kinds of other skills are becoming more important than ever. So a college education is becoming more important, not less important in the world of artificial intelligence. And once again, since we do focus a lot on the skills, but we know that you all are out there providing a holistic education for students. And a holistic education involves knowledge, skills, and abilities. Knowledge is important. Faculty are the content experts, and you focus on knowledge creation and dissemination, and that the general education gives broad knowledge, and we build into the more specialized knowledge of the majors. But development is important as well. Once again, I don't want to make you think that faculty aren't building skills. I'm just saying maybe we can be more intentional and vocal about that and help students understand what they're learning up front, and that they can take to their first job after college is being able to articulate what they've learned and what they're able to do. And then the third element is the ability to just demonstrate these knowledge and skills. We need authentic assessment. Students need to have some real world assignments and addressing real world problems. You know, capstones allow them to synthesize everything they've learned in their major. There's internships and service learning and all kinds of experiential learning opportunities. So basically, students are just asking for and can really benefit from abilities to apply their knowledge before they enter the workforce for the first time. And with that, I hope I have just given you a little context about skills and durable skills, talking about what we've done in Kentucky around the graduate profile and why we have done it, why we focused on skills. And I hope this gives you a good background for the wonderful panel you're about to hear in a few minutes. And now after the what and the why, this conference is going to focus on the how. How do you teach? How do you help students learn these durable or essential skills? So I want to thank you all for joining on a rainy early morning after school is over. That shows your dedication and your willingness to learn and your dedication to your trade, but your dedication to your students. And with that, Rusty, I will turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dr. Bell, and thanks for the great collaboration with the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education to put this conference together. I'll echo all that you have said and also add that the climate that we are in and across higher education suggests that the essential skills and the durable skills are incredibly important right now. Employers are depending on us to prepare our graduates for the workplace. But of course, as Dr. Bell alluded to, generative AI and technologies are evolving very quickly. And with that in mind, we need to consider the human skills that are so incredibly important in the profile of our college graduates. It's been so nice to see so many of you adding your locations and your institutions to the chat. Again, we'd like to encourage you to continue to add to the chat as well. I also want to encourage you to post your ideas and your questions to the chat as well. As we're moving through the panel and hearing different ideas, we'll take some of those questions and work through those. With that, I want to go ahead and set up our panel for this morning. The reason that so many of you are here is, of course, to learn about where we are with the essential skills and the durable skills in and across higher education. And a fun story in preparing for the panel, we had a conversation with our steering committee about what our outcomes for this panel should be. And it was a really good conversation because it suggested how complex these conversations are. When we talk about essential skills, we're looking at several areas, and we need to understand several areas. Not only what we're doing in the classroom, but what we're doing to support our learners needs to be informed by other areas as well. It needs to be informed by the perspective of our graduates, along with those employers who are recruiting and hiring and providing professional development for recent graduates, along with those who have recently entered the workforce and have begun their careers. This panel is a unique opportunity to look, as the panel title suggests, from campus. We have a number of faculty joining us and instructors from a range of educational contexts. So from campus to career, and having a real conversation with both alumni and employers. So this keynote's designed as an opening discussion that focuses on the importance of the essential and durable skills in the working lives of recent graduates. And we're so fortunate to have an incredible panel joining us for the conference this morning. Broadly, we asked several questions. How did graduates acquire, learn, and practice essential skills during their education? And we have several educational institutions represented here. Building on that, how have recent graduates used these essential skills in the workplace? And we've asked them to think in very real and tangible and authentic ways to help us understand that perspective. How does this look in the workplace? And then for so many of us engaging in conversations throughout the day, how can we as educators, as faculty, as instructors, as faculty developers, how can we prepare graduates with the essential and the durable skills that they need, not only for today, but also into the future? With all of that in mind, we had scheduled Dr. Weiss to moderate the session. But Dr. Weiss has unfortunately lost her voice this morning, and I've asked Brandi Anderson, our program coordinator, to serve as moderator for the panel this morning. Brandi will guide us through several pressing questions as we anticipate the future of essential and durable skills, and as we think about these questions and more to begin the conference. So at this point, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Brandi to introduce our panelists and to begin the panel. Brandi?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Pedagogicon. Again, my name is Brandi Anderson, Program Coordinator for the NOLA Studio. Trying my best to fill in Dr. Vice's shoes today, but we'll never quite. We are happy to have you join us, though, Jana. We're going to start off with some quick introductions from the panel. I'm going to allow them all to introduce themselves. We'll do this in alphabetical order. So if you would just please state your name, your organization, your current role, and just a sentence or two letting us know what it is that you do. So we are going to get started with Erick.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Erick Collings. I'm here representing Eastern Kentucky University, my alma mater. I currently serve as the legal and government strategist. So in a nutshell, from the floor of Congress all the way to the courts and legal compliance and everywhere in between, I'm helping with advocacy and compliance and ensuring that EKU is represented in our communities and doing our best to participate in that. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Erick. We're happy to have you as well. Adisyn.
Hi everyone, my name is Adisyn Donk, and I am a graduate from Gateway. I graduated from Gateway in 2023. I'm now a student at Northern Kentucky University, and I'm going for my bachelor's in mechanical and manufacturing engineering technology. It's a bit of a mouthful. I currently work at Mazak. Mazak is a CNC manufacturing company. I work in their engineering department as a co-op. I actually started on the floor welding for fabrication because I went to Gateway for welding. And when Mazak found out I was pursuing an engineering degree, they offered me a position upstairs. So now I work in the office doing manufacturing engineering. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here and share a little bit of my thoughts with you guys today.
Thank you, Adisyn. We're happy to have you as well. We'll move on to Ellie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ellie McGowan, and I graduated from Murray State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture in May of 2024. And then I actually just completed my Master's of Science in Agriculture Economics from Murray State as well. So currently, I'm a research assistant and administrative clerk on Capitol Hill for a congressional committee in Washington, D.C. So I'm super excited to be here this morning, and thank you to everyone for being here.
To have you, and we will move on to Kevin.
Hello, I'm Kevin Presnell. I'm representing Madison County Schools today. I have earned all four of my degrees from EKU, so I'm a bit of an eternal colonel. Just graduated in 2022 with my doctorate and wrote my dissertation on disciplinary literacy. So super fun. I am the principal of Boonesborough Elementary School here in Richmond, Kentucky, and that looks like a lot of different hats that we wear. I will tell you, and I'll give you a bit of a warning, there is a bouncy house blown up right outside my window right here, right now. So if you hear something on the windows, it is the last week of school, and we are trying to have some fun in between some storms. So forewarning, but I'm excited to be with you all this morning.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. We're happy to have you as well. And next we have Tyler.
Hey, morning. My name is Tyler Price. I am both a Richmond native as well as a two-time EKU graduate, receiving my master's most recently in 2021. I currently work at UK Healthcare. I am our assistant director for the solid organ transplant program at UK, where we transplant 5 solid organs: heart, liver, kidney, pancreas, and lungs. And so that is a fascinating world to work in, and I'm happy to be here and to get to share some of my experiences and insight from my end.
Thank you, Tyler. Happy to have you join us today. And last but not least, we have Madelyn.
Hi, everyone. Madelyn Tutewiler here. I'm a two-time graduate from Eastern Kentucky University. I graduated in 2013 with a degree in international globalization and international affairs, and then my master's was in safety, security, and emergency management. I currently work for MiddleGround Capital. We're a private equity firm with about $4 billion in assets under management. We specialize in industrials and specialty distribution. And there I am the director of ESG. So I work with all of our companies to set up carbon footprint reduction programs and social governance programs. And happy to be here to speak with you all today.
Thank you, Madelyn. We are happy to have all of you here with us today. We are going to get right into the first of 3 questions for you all, and then we will go into some questions from the audience. So feel free to jump in as you would like to share. Our first question is, can you discuss how you developed one specific essential employability skill while in college? Was it through coursework, co-curricular activities, or extracurricular?
Starting off here, so first and foremost, seeing the 10 essential skills. This is the first time I have actually looked at them when I was offered this. And I have to say, I was really impressed by being able to, I'm pretty young in my career, right? And so a lot of these things I haven't had the chance to really grow in yet. So the one that stood out to me the most for this question was to interact effectively with people from different backgrounds. Like I said, I'm a graduate from Gateway, and Gateway is known to have a lot of diversity within their students. And so being in the welding program, I was near a lot of my peers were from all kinds of different backgrounds and ages, and I really had to learn how to, you know, work with them and communicate with them. This is something that was a lot different than high school, and so I was able to learn a lot from that. And coming to work at Mazak's actually a Japanese manufacturing plant, and so learning how to communicate with people from a different country that don't really speak that good of English, and it's yeah, it's been a learning curve for sure, but in a lot of ways outside of work and school, I have noticed my communication skills getting better because of this. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump in after Adisyn, you know, being somebody who has only been in the workforce for a year and still taking classes while joining the workforce. I can kind of contribute some thoughts as well. So one specific skill that came from the list that I think that I really got a better grasp of and developed throughout my college career was definitely performing professionally. And I think that this is something that a lot of students come into college having a very rigid connotation on about being professional is something that comes with a suit and a tie or official attire, and maybe it doesn't apply to me. And I think that through my education, I was able to see how performing professionally is so much more than just how you conduct yourself in an interview. It's the way that you carry yourself within academia, but also within internships in the workplace. And I think that it was something that I had the chance to develop through both co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and the combination of the two, being able to develop those relationships with my professors and being able to communicate with them both inside the classroom and outside the classroom through extracurricular involvement as well was something that really allowed me to greater understand the scope of what it means to be professional. And so I think that professionalism is something that we can continue to teach students the importance of, and it's so much more than just the way that you conduct yourself in an interview. It's a way for students to hold themselves accountable, to be able to carry themselves in a way that's representative of their character and their skill set. And I honestly think that being able to perform professionally is a great connector of people. It's a great way for students and professors to integrate with each other and use their professionalism and respect for each other to build those relationships that really help develop those mentorships as well.
I just want to say, Ellie, you really hit the nail on the head. For me, in my coursework, I was an English major, and thinking about performing professionally, I really saw that in how my professors showed up and how they ran class. They had a plan, and they enacted the plan. They were dependable, and they modeled those traits that I thought were really desirable. And more than that, in the sense of performing. Now it was English and there were some theater aspects, but set that to the side. They did perform in the sense of in how they communicated, and how they uh, took stock of what the class was feeling and thinking and engaged them differently as needed. And I saw that and thought that that was really compelling. I loved the way that my professors asked really good questions. So using information for decision making. All we had was the text in front of us, and sure, maybe it was Moby Dick or it was, Hamlet or something like that. But all we had was the text in front of us, and we had to use that to make decisions and come to conclusions and interpretations. But the questions that my professors prompted from us were so compelling and made me reevaluate, like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that that scene had an implication like that. But the question, I wouldn't have gotten there if my professors weren't asking these really sharp, compelling questions day in and day out, consistently. And now, when I'm looking at a bill or I'm looking at a policy document, I'm thinking about what is that phrase? How is that phrase going to be enacted? What is the effect of that phrase going to be, 10, 15 years down the line? Because I'm thinking about what it was like to be in those literature classes and thinking about how my professors prompted that information from me. Anyway, I think that you hit the head on that.
Yeah, well, I'll share. I think my the one that stood out to me, and now I'm 6 years into the career world, and I think the one that stood out to me from both my undergrad experience as well as being in the workforce is the collaborating and working in teams. And the reason that is my undergrad experience, I can think of many opportunities both in and outside of the classroom where that was applicable. I mean, whether it be my obvious coursework. So I didn't share my undergrad degree is I have a bachelor's in health service administration, and then I have a master's in public administration with a concentrate on nonprofit healthcare. So that being said, coursework, of course, I think the collaboration that comes with just the scope of healthcare as it is, and it's truly takes a team approach. There's many multidisciplinary teams that take effect, especially at UK Healthcare. And so in putting my undergrad hat on, I think both the coursework and I mean, whether it be team projects or we would have different case studies, so we would work together as a team to go back and to analyze and conflict resolution and strategic thinking and such. But the other areas too that I think also paid dividends for me going into my professional world was the extracurricular activity realm that I had in undergrad, whether that be my time in student government or in student alumni ambassadors or campus ministries or Greek life. I mean, there were so many different areas and pockets that I was able to get invested in undergrad. And I think the one area that I've seen really that has transpired over for me into the career is I don't have to, I mean, I don't pivot at the core who I am, but I've learned that you have to pivot your approach depending on the group you're working with. And so I mean, and even we see that at UK Healthcare is as large of a scale as this institution is, and as many teams that there are that are functioning simultaneously, we find that there's often gaps in, one group not being in full communication with another. And so you have to pivot your approach in that collaboration and working in a group of people to get the outcome that you're needing within whatever that realm or scope is. So that kind of, I guess, blends in with the adapting to changing circumstances, which I know all of us are living in our own realms these days. But I think that those two merged together have really had an impact of the experiences, like I said, both in and out of the classroom and undergrad that have been able to carry over into what my day-to-day looks like now.
I guess I'll jump in and I add a little bit to that as well, Tyler. One of the things that I thought back to when looking at this particular question was, and I'm a decade out, so it was going back a little bit further in my memories of what we were doing back in my coursework. And so one of the key items that I think about a lot is thinking critically and the ability to take information, process it, and think about the biases that come along with it, who's giving you the information, what their angle is, and not that it's a bad angle or anything, but when I'm communicating between the partners of my firm, the executives on the management teams I'm working with, my direct reports, everyone has influences and their own perspectives that they're coming with and the reasons they're trying to accomplish a task or a project. And so being able to process that information and understand their why and why it impacts my why is really important, because everyone has their own specific role and we're all trying to collaborate and get something done, and sometimes those don't match and we have to figure out how to collaborate and get things done together. And so being able to identify and think beyond just Bob's getting in my way and sandbagging my project, how do I move forward? And really think about, okay, no, Bob's got his own projects that he's working on. These are the things he's been tasked with, and we need to find and collaborate. And then, I mean, I could go through every one of these skills and why it's important and where I learned something on it. But really thinking critically, I think, is the first step in being able to sift through information, the biases, the perspectives behind it, and not just see things at face value. And where I learned that was, I was thoroughly involved in college, but I spent time in the EKU honors program, and shout out to some of those professors. They really prepared me and set us up for success in that world, and making us look through primary sources and secondary sources and understanding the differences, and then showing us how that relates to real life was such a skill and helpful task and kind of workshop that we went through in undergrad. And so that's one of the things that I think I really took away. But all of these skills are so important in the workforce.
Yeah, and I think building on what Madelyn said, but then even what Dr. Bell said in the introduction, so many of these skills are so interconnected, right? They are foundational and universal skills that are naturally a part of all of our disciplines, right? And I think back to my undergrad, I was a history teaching major. So I had my foot in the history department, but then also was getting the teaching side of it as well. And the communication skills that come from learning to write and read and speak in those manners is invaluable. And I think about whether I'm writing a grant for my school or communicating with families on a day-to-day basis, right? Those skills are there and purposeful. But as I think about in the teaching side, professional improvement and professional growth is naturally interwoven into how we do business and education. I sit down with every teacher in my school every year, and we decide what is the path for professional growth. And as I was learning that in school, there are structured processes that intentionally help to guide us through that. And as Dr. Bell was saying, that some intentionality and building in those assessments, I think, is important. So in College of Ed, whenever I was going through at EKU, they called those capstone project key assessments that different courses had that specifically targeted those teaching standards that guided us towards those professional growth points there. And I look at these different skills and I think about like applying quantitative reasoning skills and being able to use data to inform instruction down the road to specifically target whatever the needs are of specific groups of populations, right? And I know we've all pretty much hit on perform professionally, but when we were told to pick one specific one, perform professionally was the one that I kind of saw. A, it was a larger umbrella, but B, I had specific examples of where professors guided me along that way as well. I have one professor, she was my a literacy professor, and her name's Dr. Diana Porter. She's since retired from EKU. But she really guided me and got me involved in professional associations that ran parallel to what we were doing. So the association at the time was the Kentucky Reading Association. And getting involved in that as an undergrad helped to guide me as I was progressing through my professional career to so forth, where I became the president of the KRA for a couple years and helped to guide that different level of engagement across our state. So I think through those different characteristics that professors help to guide you with. And I do think they are foundational, but I think intentionality also helps to make sure that we're growing and professionally working on each of those skills as we progress.
Thank you all so much for sharing. We are going to move on to question 2 now, which is, which durable skills should current students focus on developing as they prepare to enter the workforce?
I can start us off on this one, and I think I kind of alluded to it in just I mean, obviously our current climate and way, but I think one thing that I have noticed both early in my career and even as time continues on, that just the way of the world now is the adapting to changing circumstances. And I think that the ability of pivoting, a lot of that comes by trial and error and crash coursing and experiences of kind of having to trudge through it once, and then you kind of grow and learn from it. And it is one of those things that it is difficult maybe to teach in a coursework setting. I really feel like that's one of those essential skills that comes through, like I said, life experience and life skill. But just modeling that. I mean, I know so many can resonate with me on this. I mean, there's days that I start my day at 8 o'clock with a plan, and by 8:30, my day is totally different from how it started out to be. And so I think that that's one, even if it's not something that can be taught step by step, how to, approach and how to truly adapt to any kind of changing circumstance. Just starting the conversation that having to adapt to a different plan doesn't mean that the initial plan was a failure, or that you didn't have the correct outcome because you had to pivot. I mean, I think my career, I've said many times, and it's funny that I've had 3 different similar type roles, but 3 different roles at 2 different health systems now. And I always joke and say 80% of my daily duties are the tiny asterisks of other duties as assigned. But that's true. I mean, and I think a lot of us can probably resonate in different areas of our daily lives where that takes place. And so that's one that I think really could benefit folks as they come into the workforce, probably now in today's time and climate more than ever, of just not being so rigid, I guess, to a structure or to a plan of how things have to be, because tomorrow can look different than today, and today look different than yesterday. So that's just one that I would encourage folks that are especially in the classroom setting to think through ways in a didactic method that could be even discussed and just brought, like I said, I really feel like to have a full grasp. I mean, and none of us ever get perfect at pivoting. I know, I mean, there's different challenges and all that come along with it, but just starting that conversation to make folks so just aware of that as they come into the workforce, of just being in a mindset and understanding that is an important skill set, especially, like I said, in today's time, that one would have.
I would love to be able to follow up on Tyler's comments and provide more of I've only been in the workforce for a year, so kind of that emerging perspective, because adapting to changing circumstances while leading and supporting others was the one that I chose as well, that I wholeheartedly believe that current students should be working on building that as they prepare to enter the workforce. And I think that flexibility is one of the biggest things that students can have and embody that can benefit them in their career. I mean, I never thought that I would be saying, I say at least 3 times a day in the role that I'm currently in, I'm here to help with whatever is needed. And I truly believe that that flexibility and adaptability is something that has benefited me most in my career. And I think that there is kind of a mastery level approach to academia just as a whole, which is great. That's the way it's supposed to be. You know, you're there to get a degree in a specific field. And I think that sometimes we need to take a step back and show students how being able to learn about different areas, and whether it be different models of education, or whether it be different fields, or whether it be, you know, some business classes or whatever it may be, I think that students can really be helped by getting a broad scope of understanding those foundational skills to be able to build on different aspects as well. So in my undergraduate degree, in my undergraduate and my master's degree, I actually studied agriculture, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the role that I'm in now. And I think that, one, that's a testament to what students are facing as they graduate and go into the job market. You know, it's changed a lot, and I think that students are in a point right now where they say, I will take whatever job that I can get. And I think the reality of that is it may not exactly align with your major or align with what you studied for 4 or 5 years. And I think with that, by level setting those foundational skills, those research skills, the ability to engage professionally, the ability to hold yourself accountable and to be responsible. I think that by setting those foundational skills in all aspects of learning, that's where you're really going to be able to see students thrive, because they can apply those skills to many different aspects of jobs. And I think that that's something that is going to continue to grow in importance. And I really think that it's something that students should really be preparing for.
Whenever we start an interview committee at our school, I always start by telling them that I'm looking for 3 things whenever we pull. I'm looking for someone that's committed to our school, that cares about our kids, and that is willing to grow. All of this other stuff that aligns within teaching, we can support in developing when teachers come to our building. If there's a content gap, there's something that we can do to support that. If there's even behavior and classroom management issues, we can support that and help to grow that. But I need those 3 things whenever we're looking to hire. And I think that is an important concept to even think through. And I was looking at where that aligned with on here, and thinking critically to solve problems and create new ideas and solution is an employability skill that I think is something that is important that we start to teach. I think one thing that universities do a good job of is helping to create these kind of lifelong learners, of people that have the tools that they need to be successful, to be able to find new information, to be able to look for what's going on, and to find the resources to answer our problems. And like I was saying even earlier, having even those networks built that you have during college to be able to fall back onto someone to say, hey, this situation that I'm in is maybe unique, right? But what is your take on this problem? So like you graduate with this cohort of students that now that you're able to fall back on and talk to, and connect and build those relationships, so you're able to think about those together. But I do think that skill of lifelong learning and being able to grow, I think, is crucial as people come into the workforce as well.
Looking at this question, I think for me, which I don't know if I would word it specifically, if this is kind of what I'm getting at, but engage in civic life to improve society. So I think that, and I'm still not graduated, right? I'm a co-op at my job, so I'm not even technically full-time. But for me, I think something that has really impacted my professionalism as well as determination at my job is engaging in civic life. I like to do a lot of things in my extracurricular activities and free time and whatnot. And of course it was for me, but talking to my boss now, we have a lot of interest in co-ops for the summer and whatnot. And I had a conversation with him about like what he looks for on a resume, right? And he told me something really important to him is seeing that these students are interested in something other than just getting a job. And saying it's very evident to him when these these students are applying just because they need a job, right? And it's easy to say that. Of course, the goal of after graduating college is to find a career, but jobs and employers are interested in you as a person as well, right? What you have to offer to the environment of the workplace. And maybe you don't have to go out and I'm when it says engage in civic life, I'm not sure if that's meaning more of like volunteering your time. Of course, that's important, but I think, um, doing things for yourself and having hobbies and making sure that you're saving time, doing things that you like to do and being able to talk about those things and show some of your personality, not just that you're a graduate and ready to find a job.
I was also interested in talking about engaging in civic life to improve society. I think that for myself, after I got through the panic of survival after graduation, of like, what am I going to do to pay the bills and put food on the table? I got a job, and I'm thankfully, after I moved through that, I was able to think a little bit more clearly about what is not just like what is the first job that I can get that I'm good at, these employability skills, but also what is fulfilling to me, what fills my cup. After it took a few years for that to kind of settle in, to realize like, oh, fulfillment is actually, it's really important for the sustainability of what you're doing long term. And I think that something that being, as Adisyn said, that being part of something bigger than yourself um, is absolutely important. Again, beyond just the survival of what can I do to support me. And I know that in our current times, the current times that we live in it's chaotic, it's fragmented in the political world and in our own communities even. There's a lot of division, and I find that I've been full of despair of like, how can we even have a conversation with each other without it exploding into something that is not productive. Um, and in learning and working through that, I found that the solution to that despair is action, not huge action. Sometimes it's little action. Sometimes it's showing up to the library and participating in their workshops and being part and just showing up. And sometimes the engaging in civil life to improve society is showing up to the library and being part of those little things. Sometimes it's voting in local elections. Sometimes it's, volunteering with your church or with a service organization. But those small, specific ways that we can give back and participate and just show up makes the burden of, oh my gosh, what are we doing? What are we doing? It makes it more bearable and helps me feel like I'm making a difference, even though they're pretty small things. So I think engaging in civil life to civic life to improve society is not one that I would have anticipated being top of my list when I was an English major. I was more worried about how do I interview well? How do I make people think that I'm smart and competent? But it has come to be very important, 5, 6 years down the line after graduation.
So jumping in, I really struggled with this particular question. I think as an employer and someone that's a little bit further out of school, I take for granted as a supervisor and hiring manager that some of these skills don't come naturally to students, and that they are taught. And so thinking about all of that, I think one thing that may not be on this list of 10, but it almost encompasses this list of 10, is that everything doesn't stop when you walk across that stage and get your diploma. That getting a degree for a lot of jobs is just the minimum that you are, I mean, not to say you're checking a box, but you are, so to speak. I mean, it is very hard work and you've put in a lot of dedication and time. We all have. But that's the beginning. And so you are still mastering these skills. The ability to think critically doesn't stop when you leave the classroom. Communicating effectively doesn't stop once you've left the campus. And so that's what I'm seeing, particularly with our new hires and fresh grads in my workplace, is that a lot of them come and they think that I got my degree, here's my diploma, and I'll hang it on my wall or my cube, and that's it. And so, and I've prepared myself and I have all the skills I need. Give me a task. And so, and it doesn't stop there. There's this growth mindset need, and the ability to continue learning and continue adapting and developing that is really necessary. I have an associate on my team, and I gave him a project recently that he's like, I didn't learn this in school. And it's like, well, you're gonna learn it today. So that's part of continuing to grow. And just because we didn't learn it in school doesn't, and it wasn't your degree, to Ellie's point earlier, a lot of folks are just looking for a job. So you're lucky to have a job that's in your career field. So, but you have to continue learning, and you have to continue sharpening these tools and these skills, and making sure that students understand that it's not just directly the learning that happened in the classroom, but you have to take it outside of the classroom and continue to build upon that. That's just the framework, the foundation, and you're continuing to build that house or that institution, is really what I'm seeing in the workforce and for our young professionals in my workplace.
All right. Thank you all so much again. This has been a great discussion. I'm also seeing some great discussion in the chat as well. We have one final question left with about 10 minutes to go. And if we have some time at the end, we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So our final question to the panelists is, how should students identify specific essential employability skills and develop them in college?
I think, in short, for me, I would say stay involved. That has helped me more than anything to, again, like reading these 10 essential skills. I'm like, oh, okay. I've had some experience with that a little bit by doing this or by doing that. And not all of them necessarily were specifically related to my education. Just little things like Erick said earlier, going to the library, speaking to people that you wouldn't usually speak to. And that would definitely be my advice, is to just stay involved in as many ways as you possibly can.
Well, and I'll echo off that to Kevin's comment that he made about your different networks as time goes on. I mean, I think back to my and I would say diversifying yourself and challenging yourself. I mean, getting involved in, I mean, what a prime time you're there to get involved in things that you never would have considered or thought of. I mean, in challenging yourself to step into those areas. And I think of my networks now that I've built, that many of those stemmed out of college in so many different facets, and especially where my involvement was diversified, so are my networks. So the contacts that I have, and especially in my field, the number of folks in my cohort that are scattered all across the country now in the realm of healthcare, and just the times that I have seen that impact. But two, the second that I would think is, as well, is probably a more of a challenge to instructors and those that have direct impact with students, is encourage your students to get out of the classroom and get real life experience. And I think that there's a spot where the classwork and the didactic work ends, and the real life and the real world experience starts. I mean, I've been able to take I had my third EKU HSA student this past semester with me, and the number of times it's fun now being on this side of it, and then even have my own experience. But the number of times that he would come and attend a meeting with me, and in that meeting, it was like a light bulb went off, and he said, "Oh, that's what we learned about in the classroom. Like, that's what we did in the course." And being able to link, I mean, it is one thing when you're reading it in a textbook, when you're hearing it in a lecture, when you're taking a test on it, but then that connection point of being able to have that experience to make it click, makes a world of difference, even in just the impact that you know that what you're doing in the classroom really makes a difference. And I think that one thing that, and I'll do a shameless plug for the health service admin program, but they actually, two of the requirements with their program during the undergraduate years is to have 2 internships. One is a more moderate level internship, one's a higher level. And so the senior year capstone project is 6 weeks. And so what that does is pretty much the final 6 weeks of the senior semester, the student is 40 hours a week in the workforce. And that timing of that transition coming from undergrad into the real world is genius in my mind, because it just allows you to take what you've learned, but to also get the experience. And I mean, think about it. You can teach these essential skills, but how many of us gain these essential skills in our day-to-day work? I mean, that's something that, like I said, when you are actually doing the work and having those experiences, that's when these really take effect and really have solid application. And so I would just encourage, in all of the, I'm sure, numerous scopes and areas of work that this group covers this morning, I think that any of those opportunities that you can help get your students out in the workforce, even in their undergraduate years, will have compounding interest in success for them as they get out into the workforce.
I'll be brief, but I'll just say, and I think Dr. Bell touched on this in her opening remarks, I think intentionality is also key around supporting students in finding whatever they're going to work on. I think as I reflect, I don't want to take for granted that while these skills are foundational and built into every discipline, using the language also matters. Using those things and identifying, like, we're working on this to do this, makes it real life for students and gives them the language they can use as they're growing as well. And I think giving it that language, letting students pick what they're strong in and what areas they can improve with, it really helps to set them up for success.
Thank you all so much. I am hopping in. We have about 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get a question or two from the audience. But I think we can all agree we could listen to you all talk all day about this. So thank you for being a very engaging keynote panel. We have a question from Amy, and it is, which of the 10 essential skills do you think is the most challenging for students today?
I guess I'll jump in here. And this goes back to some of the conversation earlier, but adapting to changing circumstances and being able to adapt on the fly. We particularly go through college, in undergrad specifically, and we're handed a syllabus. We get a rubric. We show up to class every day at the same time. We know exactly what's expected of us and how to perform accordingly. And that's the nature of university, and that's great, and that's how it works. But it does provide a very specific expectation, and being able to kind of take a step out of that when you enter the workforce and understand that every project, every task that you do is not going to have specific instructions. You're not going to be able to ask for a rubric ahead of time. And being able to think on your feet and change and adapt. And to Tyler's point that his day changes at 8:30 can relate. And so just being able to adapt and change and understand that that's not how real life works once you exit university and school. And so creating those environments and those opportunities with your students to experience that changing and understanding that life is constantly moving forward, whether you are adapting or not.
Well, and I would say just real quick too, encouraging in the classroom, and I know that this sounds probably for some of us, it's an easier thing than others, but even the interacting effectively with people from different backgrounds, that's going to be different beliefs and different thought processes and different views on about every scope of life. And I think that can be learned in the classroom, but also that can be learned outside of the classroom in the college setting too, through getting involved. And like I said, challenging yourself. Don't you're not going to set yourself up for any success in the workforce if you coddle yourself and silo yourself to one group, one belief system in undergrad. Take that time to challenge yourself, challenge your thoughts, build your whys behind your whats. And that's one that I think that can be challenging in the workforce if students don't challenge themselves while they're have that time in undergrad.
I just want to say, listening to the panelists talk today, I've learned a lot. So, like, I'm sitting here like, I hope I'm as well spoken as all of them in a few years. So, also, I would recommend bringing in real life people to talk to your students because this has been incredibly eye-opening for me. So, I thank all of you actually, for being here today.
Yeah, just to very quickly touch on Adisyn's point too, there's a whole anecdotal part of this soft skill and foundational skill building that I think that sometimes we miss in the classroom. Like we know our professors have doctorates and are masters in fields of research and have awards and all the things, but I think it's so important to tell your students how you started. Like if you graduated college and you couldn't get a job for a couple months, what did you do to keep yourself employable? How did you end up with that doctorate career? Was your entry level job in the field of study? Like, I think it's so important to be able to communicate with students about how your story is important with them and kind of shows them both the beginning, the middle, and the end product and kind of can inspire them. So I truly believe that there's an anecdotal part of this too, and completely concur with Adisyn on that. And I've learned so much this morning too, so it's just been great.
Excellent. Thanks so much to our incredible panel this morning and to Brandi for moderating. A round of virtual applause for our panelists this morning. The chat was so lively. If you've not had the opportunity, panelists, to monitor the chat because you were so engaged in discussion, there are some great questions in the chat that we couldn't get to. We'll try to capture those and get some ideas back to those who posted those questions. But feel free to jump in and respond as we handle a few housekeeping notes as we begin the conference. What a great way to start the conference this year. The panel format is and can be so engaging as a way of sharing ideas, and we're so fortunate to have the opportunity to learn from all of your experiences, along with your reflections and advice as we begin the conference. One of the big ideas that we had was really thinking about ways that we, in the educational settings where so many of us work, can backward design to get our students to where you are. But hearing all of the incredible things, it doesn't always really tell us what we need to do. And we know that we need to prepare graduates for a workplace that is evolving rapidly and where technology is changing. And Patrick asked a great question regarding generative AI in the chat. And we know that we have a lot of work to do, and this is important work. So thanks so much for sharing your ideas. And thanks to everyone for joining us for the conference this year. This is our 12th annual Pedagogicon. For those of you and some of you joining us this year, we're at our first, which was housed in the Grand Reading Room of EKU's historic Crab Library. There were about 50 of us gathered that morning. And this year, of course, we have over 340 registrants from over 50 different institutions, which is really incredible. This conference is unique in the ways that it invites us to focus on teaching and learning, but also provides some opportunities for us to retool or update our approaches, or even to become more innovative in our teaching. I'd like to thank our colleagues at Eastern Kentucky University and our colleagues at the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, and of course, our steering committee this year. Many of them are on the Zoom call this morning. Brandi Anderson from EKU, Franny Bennett from Gateway Community and Technical College, Kevin Dvorak from Nova Southeastern University, Melanie Schemberger from Murray State University, and Sarah Wackerbarth from the University of Kentucky. And of course, Chris Butcher, coordinator of EKU's Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. The conversations that we had leading to this conference were incredibly enjoyable, but also challenged us to really think in different ways about how we prepare our graduates with the essential skills that they need to be successful in the workplace, but also to have fulfilling careers and lives. Thanks to those of you who completed the pre-conference survey as well. I wanted to share a few observations with you. And it was so interesting to see those ideas as they were coming through. In terms of impact, communication, critical thinking, and interacting effectively with others, but also performing professionally and using information for decision-making were all areas that seem to rise to the top. And those are pretty consistent with the priorities that employers have identified and the major threads that we had running through our panel this morning. That said, we're also feeling challenged in several areas, and that includes addressing critical thinking and even identifying and contextualizing what that means in a set of circumstances that can change very rapidly and where there is a good deal of uncertainty. The ways that we're supporting our students and our graduates in using information for decision making is another area where we seem to be feeling challenged. How do we do that? How do we do that in a classroom? How do we support learners in those areas? And how do we prepare them for the workplace? Sessions this year are going to speak to some of those ideas, but also follow a unique format. We'll have 30 minutes per session, which is a pretty condensed timeline, but we want to get sort of the main ideas, the big ideas that are practical and transferable. So the conference also will involve a lot of movement. You'll hear some different ideas, hopefully helping you to move us closer to preparing graduates, responding to some of the ideas that came through in the panel this morning, but also helping us to focus on the practical and transferable practices, which is yet another unique feature of the conference. Each session will have a moderator to assist with introductions and also to support effective and efficient time management. Each session also has a Zoom manager to ensure the proper workings of the online space. We don't want presenters to get hung up with the technology. We want the technology to go efficiently and to be reliable so that we can really focus on areas of teaching and learning. The conference program is your hub and your roadmap for all of the information that you'll need to navigate to the different sessions this year. Those Zoom links are active, and much like you might navigate to a room with a room number, you can use the Zoom links to navigate to the virtual spaces where we'll be holding the concurrent sessions this year. So you'll see the Zoom links, so you can join those sessions. The icons on the left will also give you a scannable way to plan your day and to align the sessions with your priorities. You will be able to follow different threads throughout the day. For example, if you're interested in durable skills, or essential skills or Gen AI, you'll see those icons there to guide you. Please go to sessions and engage with presenters throughout the day. It is a full day, but we hope you'll go start to finish as much as possible and take as much time as you can just focusing on these ideas. You'll also notice that we have graduate profile sessions. These are presenters who are from the Kentucky Graduate Profile, focusing on areas that we can use to teach and support student learning in and across the 10 essential skills. And you'll see some sessions that are focused on foundational ideas for teaching and learning for those of you who are just moving in to teaching. And you'll also see sessions that are focused on renewal. So some ideas that you can use to retool your teaching this year. And then, of course, at the end of the day, we invite you to join us for a brief wrap up and activity before we adjourn. So we hope you enjoy the conference this year. Thanks again to our incredible panelists and to Dr. Bell and to our steering committee members. We are looking forward to learning with everyone this year. And just a note that we now have about 5 minutes before concurrent session A begins, and the concurrent sessions will guide us through to the end of the day. At any point, if you have questions, just message one of us, and we're looking forward to a fantastic conference. Thanks again to our panelists, and have a great conference experience. Thank you, everyone.